There's one stretch of I-70 that haunts my memory. A desolate span in Utah between Salina and Green River. Over 100 miles with no services, no hotels, no restaurants, no gas stations. Nothing but the road, the mountains, and the endless void of the desert. There are a few pull-offs, but they're little more than lonely viewing areas, and at night, those stops feel less like rest areas and more like the settings of untold horrors. During the day, the Utah mountains have a stark beauty, jagged peaks and endless sky. But at night, the road transforms. Sure, the stars are bright, some of the clearest you'll ever see, but they hang above you like silent witnesses, cold and indifferent. The darkness wraps around you like a shroud, and those 100 miles feel like they stretch forever. This isn't a well-traveled stretch of interstate. Even in the daylight, cars are few and far between. As the sun sets, they vanish entirely, leaving you alone on the asphalt ribbon. By midnight, you can drive for miles and not see another pair of headlights. And cell service? Forget it. You're truly on your own out there. The idea of breaking down in the middle of that black expanse, with nothing and no one for miles, is enough to make your skin crawl. Still, I had no choice. I had to drive it. A little backstory. I'm originally from Lincoln, Nebraska, a place known more for its Cornhuskers than anything else. I grew up there, lived there my whole life, until I turned 25 and decided it was time for a change. I moved to Los Angeles for a job and a fresh start. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Most of my family stayed in Lincoln, and I tried to visit when I could. That Sunday, I got the call no one ever wants to get. My mom told me my grandpa, who'd been in a nursing home since his stroke, was fading fast. He might not make it to the end of the week. If I wanted to say goodbye, I needed to come now. I didn't have the money for a last-minute flight, but I had my car. Unemployed and desperate, I packed up my things, grabbed my dog, Chance, and hit the road. I'd driven this route before, and while it wasn't fun, I knew I could make it if I drove straight through. The daylight hours passed uneventfully, though I was frustrated that I'd be missing the beauty of Colorado at night. Still, I sang to keep myself awake and focused on my mission. By the time I hit Salina, it was a little after midnight. A towering billboard loomed ahead, its message stark and foreboding. Nitrogen monoxide services for 110 miles. Beneath it, the name of the city was scrawled like a warning etched by trembling hands. I stopped at a gas station, one last outpost of civilization, and filled my tank. The attendant's tired eyes met mine as they muttered something about how often people ran out of gas and had to walk for miles in the freezing cold. I laughed nervously, assured them I'd be fine, and got back on the road. Snow still clung to the edges of the pavement, a frozen reminder of the storm that had passed. The road was clear, but the emptiness pressed against me. I've always been a fast driver, pushing 90 on stretches like this, but tonight I found myself slowing down. The steep grades loomed ahead, the headlights cutting through the dark like knives, revealing nothing but endless road and shadowed cliffs. About 30 minutes in, I noticed something strange. Something that would make my stomach drop and my pulse race. I had passed a few cars several miles back, their taillights now long gone, swallowed by the abyss of the night. The road stretched out endlessly before me, and it struck me how dark true darkness is. Have you ever driven alone at night? No moonlight, no streetlights. Just you and the black void pressing in from all sides? It's the kind of emptiness that makes you question how far civilization really is and how alone you might actually be. Sometimes on long straight stretches of road like this, I'll turn off my headlights for just a few seconds. It's reckless, I know, but there's something hypnotic about seeing the world reduced to pure inky black. No shadows, no edges, just nothingness. It's almost cathartic, but not tonight. The loud pop shattered the stillness, and the car wrenched violently, right or maybe left, I can't even remember now. My low tire pressure indicator lit up like a warning beacon. Instinct took over as I wrestled the wheel to straighten out the car, finally bringing it to a shaky stop on the side of the road. My heart pounded in my chest as the emergency lights began their relentless, rhythmic blinking. Chance, my dog, stirred in the backseat, whining uneasily. He could sense something was wrong. I stepped out into the freezing night, the crunch of my boots on icy pavement loud in the oppressive silence. The air was biting, and my breath came in sharp puffs. My flashlight illuminated the damage. The front right tire was completely shredded, rubber flayed like it had been gnawed by something feral. I couldn't make out what had caused it, not in this darkness. Of course, I checked my phone. No service. Sighing, I rolled down the back window so Chance could stick his head out while I worked. He sniffed the air nervously, his ears flat against his head. I retrieved the spare and jack from the trunk, muttering under my breath about having to limp the rest of the way to Green River on a donut. As I turned back toward the front of the car, I froze. Someone was there. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, there was a figure, a tall silhouette, just barely visible at the edge of my headlights. They were walking toward me. Chance, normally quick to bark at the slightest movement, was silent. He just stared, his body rigid, his eyes fixed on the figure. They kept coming, slow and deliberate, until they were about 30 feet from my car. I couldn't make out any features, just that they were tall, really tall, 6'5", 6'6", maybe taller. And then they stopped. They just stood there, unmoving, staring. My mouth went dry. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat louder than the last. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling despite my best effort to sound steady. No response, no movement. The cold gnawed at my skin, but the figure didn't seem to feel it. They weren't even shivering, despite the fact that it was well below 10 degrees. "Hello?" I called again, louder this time. My voice echoed down the empty stretch of road, swallowed by the dark. Nothing. I was starting to wonder if this person needed help more than I did. My hand tightened on the jack handle as I took a hesitant step forward. That's when I heard it. "Do you need some help?" The voice was faint, almost too faint, like it wasn't coming from the man at all, but from somewhere else entirely. It was higher pitched than I'd expected, almost childlike, yet unmistakably male. Who are you?" I stammered. He didn't answer. He just stood there, staring, his face still hidden in shadow. Chance let out a low growl, the sound rumbling deep in his throat. I took a step back, my pulse racing, the flashlight trembling in my hand. "Stay there," I warned, though my voice was barely above a whisper. But he didn't stay. He took another step forward. His size still strikes me as unnatural, towering and unnerving, but he doesn't move. He just stands there, silent and still. "Where did you come from?" I asked, my voice barely steady. There had been no taillights ahead, no cars passing me for miles. He doesn't answer, doesn't react, but again, I hear that voice, disembodied and faint whispering. "Do you need some help?" The words seem to float, untethered, like they don't belong to him or this place. I grip the tire iron tighter as I slowly inch toward the front of my car. Every instinct is screaming at me to stop, but something compels me forward, if only to confirm what I think I'm seeing. The man remains still, his face hidden in shadow, his head bowed slightly. The beam of my flashlight trembles in my hand, barely illuminating him. He's wearing just pants and a short-sleeved shirt, the kind of attire no one sane would wear in this frigid cold. My breath clouds the air in puffs, but he doesn't even flinch against the icy wind. "Hey, how long have you been out here?" I demand, but my voice cracks. He doesn't answer, doesn't even lift his head. My heart pounds as I edge closer to the driver's side of the car, ready to make a run for it if I need to. Then he speaks again, and this time his voice is wrong. It's strained, like the words are being dragged out of him against his will. "Do you need some help?" I freeze. The tone is different now, urgent, almost pleading. The words spill out faster. "Do you need some help? Do you need some help?" The repetition sends chills racing up my spine, each phrase more frantic than the last. He takes a single step forward, a long, deliberate step that closes the distance between us unnervingly fast. "Do you need some help?" he says again, his voice growing louder, desperate. It's enough to snap me out of my paralysis. I dart around the car, my fingers fumbling for the driver's side door handle. Behind me, Chance explodes into frantic barking, his growls reverberating through the cold air. Just as I grab the handle, a beam of light cuts through the darkness. Headlights ... I whirl around instinctively, relief flooding my chest. Another car. Finally. It's coming fast, its headlights carving through the emptiness. Chance's barking grows louder, more frenzied. I glance back toward where the man had been standing. He's gone. My flashlight sweeps over the snow, searching for him. "Hello?" I yell, but the only response is the howling wind. I stand there, heart hammering, scanning the road. There's no sign of him, no shadow, no sound, nothing. The car speeds past me without slowing down, its taillights vanishing into the distance. I can't blame them. Would you stop for a car on the side of this road in the dead of night? I walk cautiously toward the spot where the man had been, my tire iron still clutched in my hand. Snow crunches beneath my boots as I reach the edge of the headlight's glow. Footprints. The prints start where he had stood, leading down the road. They're impossibly large, far larger than they should be, and spaced out in long, unnatural strides. I follow them to the edge of the headlights, and then I see it. They turn abruptly, veering off the road and disappearing into the wilderness, into nothingness. I'm not stupid enough to go wandering into the Utah wilderness at night, but curiosity gnaws at me. Where could he have gone? What was he? More headlights appear behind me, snapping me out of my thoughts. I retreat to the car, shaking, and finish changing the tire as fast as my frozen hands will allow. I'm back on the road soon after, but the rest of the drive feels suffocating. The once familiar silence now seems hostile, heavy with unseen eyes. By the time I pull into Green River, the encounter feels like a fever dream, too surreal to be real. I tell myself I imagined it. The exhaustion, the isolation, it must have been my mind playing tricks on me ... But one thing's for certain, I'll never take that road at night again. Some things are better left undiscovered.